Good evening, everybody. It's December 21st, 2021. Let's take a look at Bitcoin, which today proceeded upwards as was expected. Still have not gotten the double bottom target I laid out here. We talked about this being a potential double bottom, neckline breakout there, and target is somewhere up here around 50.7 or so. So we haven't quite gotten there yet. Other thing to look at, we have this yellow downtrend breakout, which hasn't really done much. The volume's been pretty pathetic. And then we've got the larger downtrend coming down here as well, which we need to take a look at too. So I've got, I still, based on the price action, I still am not happy with what Bitcoin is doing. I think I've made that clear. Really would have preferred to see a flush down here below that low, in which case, you know, wherever it went, the bulls could have then done an actual impulse up from there. However, let me switch on over to the daily chart. So as you know, I've been tracking this RSI downtrend here, and said once we had a breakout of that RSI downtrend, I would have to consider jumping back into longs, because this is a pretty strong signal typically, that maybe a bottom has already been struck and we're going to proceed upwards from here. So let's just look at how that plays out, and see what we're dealing with here. All right. So if we look back all the way back here, we had this strong RSI downtrend. So first thing I want to point out before I go any further is that this RSI downtrend is much more reliable. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a whole bunch of touches here. So we've got, like, you know, 6+ touches of this trend line. This trend line is based solely really on these 2 points, and like maybe we can call that a little bit of resistance there. So as far as like signals go, I'm not looking at this RSI downtrend as strong of a signal as this one was, just based on that. So I do want to mention that in case we see, you know, continuation downwards at some point here. You know, this RSI downtrend is not as strong of a signal as we saw back here. So anyway, but it is nonetheless a signal and kind of a warning sign that maybe we're going to go up, right? And so we go into the possibility of the diagonal upwards to end our 5th wave. So we've been looking pretty much at 2 options here. Option 1 is that this was ABC up in a 1st wave. We did ABC down in a 2nd wave. That bottomed at 42K. And now we're going to proceed upwards, ABC up in a 3rd wave, followed by ABC down in a 4th and ABC up in a 5th. And that'll give us a leading diagonal upwards that will finish off this bull run, basically. The alternative would be if we broke that 42K low, I would expect that we would come down into this region again down here, the 30Ks, maybe even 20Ks, with an expanded flat, where this is A, that's B, and this is C. To be perfectly honest, this would be more bullish in the long run, because we could still then see an actual impulse up off of those lows, which who knows how high it could go. It could go pretty significantly high. We'd know that after the 1st wave was in place. So that's still potentially on the table, but I have to lean slightly towards the leading diagonal with this RSI breakout here at this point in time until it proves otherwise. So I think that's kind of what I'm leaning towards, and I'll probably look to start entering some positions again here based on that. I'm just going to be really careful with how I do it and where I enter in order to not get burned in case it does dump down and this RSI breakout is a false signal, which still potentially could be the case. And let's, you know what, let's zoom in here on this RSI too and just make sure I'm not completely out of line calling this a breakout. Should probably have done this first before I even started this video. Let's see. There we go. All right. That is still a breakout. If we zoomed in here, you know, there's one touch, two touch. Like I said, we don't really have that third touch, so not a super strong signal. But regardless, we do have a potential breakout there. All right. So moving on, let's assume for a second that we are in fact going to see a third wave up here within a diagonal structure. Where is that going to go? So we're going to draw from the low here up to the high, down to the 42K low there. And typically, well, the third wave has to be at least as large as the first wave. And so that gives us a target here at the 1.0 extension. Let me make this a different color so it's easier to see. Let's go with yellow. Okay. So that gives us a target of 99.7K as the 1.0 extension. Could see that extend up to 122K, right? So that is kind of the ideal location. I had that 3 on there already. So this makes sense for that to be a third, potentially a third wave there. And then once that's in place, we would draw a diagonal from the 1 to wherever the 3 ended and down to the 2, something along these lines. And this would now be our diagonal to work with, so we'd have our 3 up here, 4 would come down. So we could see 122K and then have it crash down to 80 and then proceed upwards one more time, potentially up, you know, in this region. I mean, it could get us near to 200K even within this structure. But I've discussed multiple times before how unreliable diagonals are, and so even though it really should end us off on 5 waves in one way or another, it can become very convoluted in here, and I'm not viewing this as a super high confidence structure right now. So I do still prefer the structure where we dump down, to be perfectly honest with you, so that we can just retry. But I don't know if that's what we're going to get. So how do we play this? How do we you know, make sure that we're being good stewards of our funds, and you know, we're not taking on too much risk and all that? So the first thing to think about is this low, right? 42K low. If we break down below 42K, I've discussed the possibility of just kind of sweeping those lows and going up. That is a possibility, but realistically, if we break that 42K low, I favor going deeper, at least into the mid 30s, down here 36 or so, and potentially even into the mid 20s. So I think, you know, stopping out below the 42K low probably makes very good sense based on that. Okay. Next thing we need to look at is, you know, this lower time frame structure is not really leading us off in a super fantastic fashion. We kind of have what potentially is a leading diagonal here within the larger diagonal, right? We have ABC up in potentially a 1. We've got W, X, and Y, because that got really choppy, in a 2. And then we can see upwards into this area, which I laid out for third wave. So let me make this a different color. This is a different diagonal from the larger one that we're looking at. We're going to make that a pink diagonal. Why not? So here would be our potential 1 and 2, and then we're looking in this red box for a third. So realistically, breaking above this high, which we've done, this B wave high, is a good first indication that that is going to play out, but we do still have this larger downtrend to deal with. So as I've discussed, you know, this 51.9 region is really the biggest area to say, okay, yeah, if we break that, we're very likely going up higher. So I think my plan at this point in time is to wait for some of these indicators to reset, at least on the hourly, right? Because at this point, we should be seeing some sort of a rest. We don't have to, it can just continue upwards, but if we do see a resting period where this comes down a little bit, right, and maybe retests sort of 47.5 or so, that should be enough to reset our RSI down. Doesn't have to go all the way down to super oversold, but just, you know, get us down a bit, start giving me some green on the PPO here. I will start easing back into some of my buys, I believe, if that happens. Because, again, of that daily RSI breakout, I think that may be wise. From there, we realistically could probably put a stop below here, unless this is making an even more convoluted correction pattern and then we go up. But I think, you know, really these lows can be used as a pretty decent stop, I would say. So under, you know, 45.5, it really shouldn't duck under 45.5 again from this point. So that may be a decent place to put a stop. Obviously 42K would be your widest stop if you want to put it under there. So yeah, sorry, I'm kind of like formulating my plan as I discuss here. So yeah, if we see a little bit of a pullback here, you know, overnight and or tomorrow, kind of let these things rest a little bit. It's probably worth a little bit of a buy, you know, maybe some longs for potentially the next move up. At least to, you know, I still expect at least 50.7 to hit, but if we can really, you know, see a little pullback and then really truck through those resistances there, then we should proceed pretty quickly up into the high 50s and maybe low 60 range. At that point, I'll probably go ahead and take profits. A whole bunch of profit taken off of all of those positions within this red box here. Because this action does not indicate that it should go higher than that. You know, we're probably, like I said, going to get sort of a diagonal within a diagonal sort of a deal. So that's a good place to take some profits then, and then we can look to reload on the next pullback, and then we should get another wave up from there. And then from that point, we should see a pullback, and, you know, we'll see where that goes at that point, basically. But there's still certainly a ton of proving that the bulls have to do, but that daily RSI breakout is a pretty big step. So yeah, that's my plan. Ease back into positions if we pull back. If we don't get a pullback and this just continues pushing and stays oversold, I don't really care. That's fine. I don't need to jump into a position right now. I really don't even care if this whole thing plays out. You know, I can be patient and watch this go to 60K and then just rebuy the next pullback, because it'll be right about where we are right now, probably. So I'm not too upset if it kind of runs away without me, because, like I said, I don't expect this to go full bull mode at this point in time. It's got a lot of work it needs to do still. So yeah, so I think that's kind of my plan. I'll keep tracking this action, and even though we've got that daily RSI breakout, don't get super excited until we actually break this high. That's still a major line in the sand and a major sticking point. Let's just see what a higher time frame looks like. 4 hour, oops, 4 hours getting super overbought here. So that's a bit of a warning sign. Definitely needs to rest. So like I said, you know, kind of waiting for a pullback here on the lower time frame, hourly, even if, you know, the 4 hour probably needs to reset a bit here. Because if we zoom back out, even during large runs on the 4 hour, we get at least a resting period, you know, as this 4 hour PPO starts topping out and the RSI starts topping out. It does rest and come down kind of below this midline anyway. So we'll need to see that before I would start jumping in. If we do just consolidate in this region for a while and that PPO comes down like that, that would be an indication to me to say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and buy. Again, you know, right here we see red on the PPO, right? And then resting period, it actually went up during that resting period, but it stayed within this range and came back down to test that low again. So like I said, you know, expecting this to just go rocket mode with the PPO looking like this, I don't think is a very good expectation. There should be consolidation at the minimum along the way. All right, Last thing to look at, let's see. I really don't see any major ABC that I can track either. You know, it's been very helpful along the way here as we had A, B, and C. I've been able to draw these support boxes, resistance boxes that kind of show us temporarily anyway where we may see some reaction, and we haven't gotten that yet. So again, that kind of leads me to believe that we'll see a pullback so that we can get an A and a B before a C wave up somewhere. And maybe that happens higher. Maybe we get an A and a B and a C like this. That's certainly possible as well. But right, I think that pretty much sums it up. I think that gives me a decent plan of sort of reaccumulation here on the off chance it does go up. And in the meantime, I'm still, even as I'm accumulating, to be honest, I'm still going to be hoping for a dump to take us back down below that level and reset all of this so that we can have a better end to this bull market. But all right, guys, I will talk to you all tomorrow.